Hi everyone, today I'm here with Richard Devine, professional sound designer, artist, audio engineer. Richard has done sound design for numerous companies ranging from Google, Apple, Jaguar, BMW, HBO, and so many more. Plus, he's one of my favorite people in the industry. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Richard. So what I wanted to ask you today is some questions about your recent experience with Flock Audio Patch System. What was your first impressions on seeing the Flock Audio Patch System online? This is like before you owned it.
Man, yeah, I did some research, was looking for patch bays at the time, and I'd been using, older patch bays, like a couple of switchcrafts for many years. And when I initially came across the Flock Audio Patch, it really excited me that there was something out there that didn't require any patch cables. Funny enough, coming from me, didn't require any patch cables, but it blew my mind away. It was really just something where it kind of made me go, wow, this would really change the way that I would do things and think about things, as far as how I'd route all my outboard pieces of gear, how they'd be connected into one environment. It would unify everything, and it would be organizing everything, so it'd be easier to see several pieces of gear would be doing when they're loaded up in a processing chain. So it just, my mind just kind of had that explosion moment, like holy cow, this is something I'm gonna have to check out. You just think about things differently. It's just, like I said, it's been a game changer for me, really has.
Awesome. I always love hearing that statement from you about a game changer, and I know like a lot of people hate that expression.
Yeah,
but I've heard it numerous times from various artists, and you included, and they always say that, I don't like to call things a game changer, but this system really has been, and that makes us feel fantastic here at Flock.
It totally has. Yeah, I mean, there's I can't think of a better way to describe it, but it really hits on every point as being like a piece of equipment that really can significantly change the way you work and how you deal with outboard processing equipment and organizing that processing equipment and on your day-to-day projects. It makes your outboard equipment 10 times more useful, in my opinion. Whereas I had to do stuff I'd be lazy and didn't want to really do stuff and be like, oh man, I know I should be hooking this up, and then I'd have to like physically patch stuff or repatch stuff, and I'd have cables go bad and stuff. Sometimes there'd be all kinds of weird issues, and not that it was terrible. It's just the way that it's been done for many years, and that's just how you had to do it,
Yeah.
And when I saw your product, I was like, oh, this is great. The expandability, you could grow and have more systems. Then now you guys have introduced even newer systems like the XT with higher track counts. So it really is making me even rethink how I even use my studio.
That's amazing.
As far as like maybe not using just outboard equipment, now we could maybe plug all your synthesizers into this and look at it more like a giant interface matrix where all of your synths and stuff and whatever your instruments can go into this, and each instrument can occupy its own channel. You can call a specific processing for that specific instrument.
Well, what was your, so we talked a little bit about like when you first seen it online and then like how you're using it. What was your first impressions when you pulled it out of the box, like just holding the hardware? Because we've heard from many customers that it's some of the most well-engineered, well-built piece of gear. Like it's built like a tank, and we really put a lot of thought into it, and we really dove into the design early on in the early stages before it was even announced.
Oh man, I mean that's exactly how I felt when I pulled it out of the box. The sturdiness of the materials that you guys were using, the rack ears, everything was super solid. The finish, I love the brushed like dark sort of metal finish, and just I could tell you guys paid attention to details, like everything about the icons, even the placement. The hardware itself is extremely high quality build, beautiful weight. Everything just felt like, it felt like a piece of like manly gear. When you take something out of the box, like, oh yeah, this is real hardware right here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys really pay attention to a lot of the details. Like I could tell that there was a lot of care and love that went into this device, and it just gave me this confidence. I was just like, yeah, I'm confident these people have really taken the extra time to make sure every measure was taken properly, that this is going to be something that's going to be a piece of gear that's going to be in my setup for a very long time.
What about, so as going further down the line now, what about hooking it up your first time kind of setting it up? Obviously, there's a little bit of thought process that has to go into it. I would say, in my opinion, as the designer and the manufacturer, I think that's probably the worst part about patch is the first initial setup, because you're basically ripping apart your studio and resetting it up and stuff like that, but it's the after effect that you get that it's just so beneficial once it's hooked up. So can you kind of talk a little bit about how you kind of mapped out your I/O when you initially set it up?
Sure, yeah. Well, I did it the old-fashioned way. I just got a sheet of paper out. I pulled out all my devices, so I had my input, what was going to be feeding into the block audio patch, and then I had my setup what's going to be capturing, so my DA converter and my analog digital conversion stage, and then I had analog mass select limiter that hits that I can either bypass or unbypass before it goes into my ED converter. And then I also have a summing mixer in there, a 16 or two 32 channels of 2 dangerous 2-bus plus summing mixers that I can link together if I want, depending on the session. But so I have a bunch of stuff that's in there that I could route anyway, and like you said in the beginning, it was the hardest part for me was just getting all of the DB25 cables labeled, and then routing everything through my desk, and then I had to write out the diagrams. Actually, you guys provided some really helpful. You guys printed out, included in the box, these these patch sheets that were great. I actually used them just writing stuff out. I was like, channel 2, my API 2500 is on there. My back EQ's on channel 3 or 4, and it was really helpful. So I wrote everything out, and then I rigged everything up, and then when it started labeling everything inside the software, it was just kind of becoming, I was like, oh my god, this is killer. Like, I can just drag and drop it right there it is,
hardware like plugins, right?
Yeah, it was like a magical moment when I first did that. When I set up my first processing chain in Flock, I was like, oh, this is really cool.
So speaking of which, with that, the GUI, so the graphical user interface, or the patch app as we call it, was it easy to learn? When you first set it up and you labeled out all your gear, you had it all connected to the hardware, and then you were setting up your first routing, did it just make sense right off the bat looking at it? Was there a harsh learning curve, or was it just I get this, it makes sense?
Yeah, it was. For me, it made sense right away. It was very easy to understand, very logically laid out. You have your matrix grid of your inputs and your outputs, and you select what you want. You either define if you want to use phantom power or not. It's very elegant. Yes, I love the dark color scheme. Easy to read. It's everything. I love the way that you can label things, and then you can group. I love that you can group in stereo, stereo pair. Very quickly. It had basically every single thing that I would want, and more. So it's I've had no complaints as far as the GUI goes. It's been a joy to use, and here at my studio, it's pretty much open 24/7. I run it all the time, so it's always running, and I'm always switching stuff around. What I'm doing. I have a setup for when I just listen to music, stuff when I'm mastering, stuff when I'm tracking. So it's I just call up the preset for whatever the occasion is, and it's running 24/7 here.
That's great. So what's your favorite feature then? I know it's probably hard because there is so many features built in this thing. When we were developing it, it was just typically you have a piece of gear and it has one single purpose, right? I like the term of one customer called it on a review, the Swiss Army knife of your studio. It just has so many features. So what would be your favorite feature to date that you like?
Let's see. It's great that, I love that it's USB host control. You just need a simple USB cable. So there's no special proprietary cables. That's great. The other feature I love, obviously, is to be able to create, store, and recall these complex configurations. I have stuff that's crazy, that's using every piece of gear in my mastering desk here, and it's so awesome just a click of the button to have it go whoosh, or whoosh, whoosh, And just like it's insane. And it's just I have like all my presets categorized, and I have like presets for mixing, for mastering, for stem processing. I have a ton of stem processing, drum bus processing presets. So I've been able to start getting into like more granular, processing chains that do very specific things depending on what I want to work on that day. So it's helped me actually become even more organized in how I use my equipment, how I label my equipment, and how I'm utilizing it within different contexts of how it's being applied.
Oh, very cool. Obviously, like the store and recall is one of the main best features built into the actual system itself. Now, as somebody who takes their craft so seriously, with some of the biggest companies in the world for sound design, you're an artist, engineer, you take it all very seriously. One question, some customers will always post us, and it's a hard thing to really answer because you have to experience it and use it to be able to answer this, is they'll say, I'm concerned about the patch system altering the audio quality or audio signal. And they worry that it'll colorize it, they worry that it possibly may change it, or there might be level differences and stuff like that. We took that very seriously early on in the design period. So we took the different steps, and I think you and I had discussed this early on, of using a form of IC chipset that basically is like a crosspoint chip to be able to do the routing. Now, because you take your stuff so seriously and you're so in tune as far as the audio world, have you ever A and B'd it? Have you ever heard any difference or any issues with your quality of audio passing through patch?
It's funny. I did some initial A/B tests at the beginning using the Convert 8s from Dangerous Music, and I have two Apollo 16X interfaces here. So I just did some simple tests. I played audio through them, and I used also the Flock Audio patch. And to be honest with you, I really couldn't difference in anything. I didn't hear any coloration. I didn't hear any volume drops. There wasn't any degradation to the high-end detail or anything messing with like the bass frequencies. Some listening tests, listened to some material, did some sine sweeps, played white and pink noise, panning and stuff like that. Just test all the basic sort of functions. And to be honest with you, I didn't hear any difference at all. Everything sounded like it was a completely passive system. It was not any coloration of any kind, at least on my speakers, and I'm using ATCs here as my main monitors, so I wasn't able to detect anything.
That's great. And I think that was out of all the features we added and everything that we wanted to put into the system, number one was to make sure it was as transparent and basically zero latency, because there is no ADD or D to A conversion or anything like that. We just wanted a completely transparent, sonically transparent system, and it makes us feel great here that we were able to achieve that and get artists and audio engineers like yourself at such a higher level, taking these things and just saying it just works. That's what I love about it. And
it just works.
A compliment to us. So you've talked about patch in multiple podcasts and articles, and thank you, by the way, for that support. Stating that it's been your favorite gear purchase in years. Why is it your favorite? Obviously there's some amazing gear you have in your studio there from incredible manufacturers that we very much look up to here at Flock, but why was patch one of your favorites?
I think it made me, it was my favorite piece of gear because it brought new value to existing gear that I've had for a while, and it helped me utilize that gear to its fullest potential. So I may have been utilizing it in the past, but maybe I've never used it to its fullest potential. So what the Flock Audio Patch allowed me to do is utilize all this equipment that I've had for a while in the best way possible. And I could use it at any configuration, in any combination, at any second, without any delay or setup, and be able to recall that. It's just, I can't think of another piece of equipment that, if you're using a piece of equipment that you say that you're using every day, it's one of those pieces of equipment that it's been a long time since I've seen a company create something that I feel is, if it's something that you couldn't live without, it's one of those pieces when it's become something I couldn't live without. Now that it's been integrated in my system, and now I've adopted it into in my workflow, and now it's become a crucially important part of the signal chain and how I deal and organize all of my outboard gear. And like once it's like one of those pieces of gear that once you get it, you're like, oh my God, where's this been all my life? There's no way I could ever work. There's no way I could work any other way again.
I've heard so many customers say they wanted this for years and years and years, and they're so thankful we brought it to the market and brought such a great version of it to the market. But it's another thing to kind of say, like, once you have it, you don't ever want to like work without it. And I think that's true.
It's 100% true in my situation. Yeah, like I said, as far as somebody who, yeah, like you said, I take audio very seriously, and you know, I spent a lot of time and money and investment making sure my setup has been great, but I also want to fully utilize it to its full potential. And it's one of those pieces of gear that allows you to utilize everything you have to its fullest potential. I can't say that I was necessarily doing that with my old setup before I had the patch. So this piece of equipment really made that happen, and actually helped me even understand my equipment that I've had for a long time even better. I was just like, wow, I never really thought to patch it this way or in this configuration, because I'd never had an interface or an environment that allowed me to really do that really quick and be able to do like side-by-side comparisons and take notes and just, you know, instantly A/B stuff using, you know, different.
I love that you like said that it's allowed you to understand your other gear so much better, and like you're finding out new creative possibilities with it. One of the questions I was going to ask you is like, does it make you more creative? But I mean, you answered that already in different ways, right? Like it's making you explore your current gear. And that's one thing I did hear at a trade show once. I think it was at one of the NAMM conventions. They said, honestly, like, thank you so much, because you guys are literally bringing the fun back to analog. And you're making all this other analog gear so much more accessible. So that was a great compliment for us.
It's 100% true. Yeah, that's exactly true. Yeah, it's making it more accessible. It's easier to use. You're more efficient. You can do things much faster. You can hear things and do A/B comparisons, try out different routings and configurations. Things that would have taken hours and hours to do before takes a couple seconds with a click of a mouse, and that to me is, you know, it's genius. It really, really is. And like, I'm excited to see where you guys go in the future with this, because I feel like you guys are really onto something. You really are.
Thank you. Well, we definitely have some very, very cool things coming, both with the software of it, as well as, you know, with some of the hardware, as you can see here in the background, that we're testing and going through right now and conditioning for actual release. So with that being said, who would you recommend patch to? Like,
it's interesting. I think I'd recommend it to everyone that's like a producer, it's a sound designer, or you know, a mastering engineer, or, you know, tracking engineer. I mean, you can utilize this hardware in any kind of type of situation. You know?
With some of our new upcoming announcements as far as new products, which one are you most excited for?
I'm really excited about the XT.
I kind of figured.
The big one, yeah. Like, yeah, when I'm really excited to see how using a big interface like that would work with a person like me. I use like hundreds of synthesizers. I have dozens of drum machines and stuff, and you know, I'm not just thinking of like outboard gear, because a lot of projects that I have to work on, I have to create content very quickly. So it'd be nice to have an interface where I have everything plugged into this, and maybe to like the Patch XT. Like, I have all my classic synthesizers and drum machines routed in, and I have them all labeled on their individual channels, and be like, all right, I got my 909, I got my Rolands, I got my Korgs or whatever, and then I can just drop them on a channel, and then I just start playing them. So I have everything routed here with these Mio 10 iConnectivity interfaces where I can play them on a network, and then be able to route them into Patch, and then select my favorite outboard EQs and compressors through a processing chain to be recorded into my DAW. And that is what I'm really excited to do in the future. It's even making people like me think differently about how I'm going to do things in the future, which is really, really cool. You know, it just completely rewrite the whole script going forward, and utilize that and be more efficient and productive in how we work and how we route and record things. And yeah, I think it's I salute you guys, because you guys are killing it. So.
Well, thanks so much. You know, it's been a true pleasure talking with you today, and it always is. Well, thanks again so much, Richard, for taking the time to chat with us today. For the rest of you who are interested in checking out more about Patch, please visit our website, and thanks so much.